Obsessive food thoughts. Ooh, this is a big one. So, obsessive food thoughts, this is something I lived with for over 30 years, constantly obsessing about food. Why do we obsess about food? Where do obsessive food thoughts come from? Guess where? Diet mindset. The reason why we obsess about food is because we believe we can't have something, or we shouldn't have something, or we're so caught up in our heads around what's good and what's bad that we're always thinking about the next meal, because we're so obsessed with this idea that we need to be watching and controlling our food all the time. So obsessive food thoughts keep us stuck in food prison. They come from diet mindset. They come from constantly restricting. They come from having rules. They come from living in a black and white area with food. When I coach with my clients, the first thing I teach them is we work on getting in the area of gray with food. So things aren't so black and white. Things aren't so perfectionistic. So I spent so much of my life thinking, if I could just eat perfectly, then my body would be the weight I want it to be, or then my body would look the way I want it, or then I'll be so healthy. Health was usually, it was a big part of the reason, but it wasn't the main reason. It was about how my body looked, or the weight I was gonna lose, any of that. Or if I was trying to lose weight, the food obsessive thoughts came in even stronger, and that was because I was in restriction mode. Food obsession thoughts come from being in restriction, right? When we're just telling ourselves we can't have something, when we deem something as bad, when we're labeling foods in a way where we feel like those are forbidden, of course we obsess about them. That's how our brain is wired. We're wired to go into, like when we go into survival mode, we're wired to continually think about those foods. We're wired to continually think about, I need to eat. And then it just creates such turmoil and so much suffering inside of us. Today's Friday. Last night I went to a yoga class and it was so lovely. It's been so brutally hot in Santa Barbara. I swear October's confused with August. This is how it goes for us. September is like July and October is like August. So we've been having really high heats, high winds. There's been fires around. Luckily nothing super close to us. But it's been so hot, and I haven't, wanted to turn the stove. I haven't wanted to cook. I've just been like eating a lot of fruit and eating, making smoothies and things like that. So last night I went to yoga with a dear friend of mine, and I got home and I remembered, I was kind of hungry, but I didn't really want to cook because it was still hot, and I didn't want to eat like a big heavy meal. I always tend to want to eat lighter when it's hot out. So I was like, ooh, I have grapes in the refrigerator. Ooh, I bought them the other night at the farmer's market. And ooh, I really want them because they would be so hydrating and so refreshing. And I have those pistachios I bought that have like garlic and onion, and they'd be savory and crunchy. So what did I have for dinner? Grapes and pistachios. And it was the perfect dinner. Now, if I would have done this in the past, I would have obsessed about, this isn't enough food. Now I can eat whatever I want later. This isn't a proper dinner. Oh my God, there's too much sugar in these grapes. There's too much fat in these nuts. All the crazy food obsession. That's what I would have done in the past. What I did now was, wow, this combination of food is amazing. I sat at my kitchen table. I plucked each little flame grape off the vine, popped it in my mouth. They were like juicy and crisp and kind of like sour but sweet. Then I would like pop a pistachio out of the shell and eat that. I sat down and did this at my dinner table. Pumpkin was sitting by my feet waiting for something to drop, and I just fully enjoyed what I considered my dinner that evening. Now most of you are probably thinking, that's not a meal. What? That's not enough food. Oh my God, you starve yourself. I do not starve myself at all. The other day I wrote about how I felt like a bottomless pit. There was one day where I just kept eating, and I never really felt satisfied or full. It wasn't from an emotional place, it was my body. I was hungry. And that usually can happen for me when I'm hormonal, when I'm right before my cycle. And so I've just learned to accept that. There's days I'm hungrier than other days. And when I'm hungrier, I let myself eat. And when I'm not, I don't eat as much. So the thing about this is, in the past, I would have been obsessing. Oh my God, I'm so hungry today. Why am I eating so much? What's wrong with me? There's too many calories. I'm overeating. I would have gone into all this crazy obsession, right? Because I lived in diet mindset. I lived in good and bad foods, I lived in black and white eating. I lived in perfectionistic eating, right? I just need to eat perfectly. I'd set myself up every Monday and end up failing by the end of the week. Or I'd start off the day really strong, and at night I'd be like, oh, forget it. What's the point? I'm just going to have the ice cream on the couch. I'm just going to eat the chips or whatever, right? Now I can have those things with no guilt. I don't need to feel like I have to have them at a certain time of day. I always check in with myself. I listen to my body. This helps alleviate obsessive food thoughts. The obsessive food thoughts come from diet mindset, come from restriction. All of this stuff, as you guys can see from Wednesday to today, it's all connected, right? Yesterday I talked about self-sabotage. Wednesday I talked about consistency. All of these things are connected, and they're all related to the dieting mindset, the diet culture, right? Our beliefs with food and what drives those beliefs, and then also how we think about food and how that shows up in our behaviors. Today I was on the phone with a client of mine, and we were talking about, emotional eating and how when she gets upset or she feels stressed out, food is the first place she goes. And I really encouraged her to dig deeper and to really check in with herself at this time, and to know when she was in that state of stress turning toward food, that was her signpost to turn inward and ask herself, what do I really need right now? We turn to the food because we have this hole that we're trying to fill up, especially when we're eating emotionally, when we're using food as something other than nourishment. That doesn't mean we can't enjoy food. It doesn't mean we can't have an experience with food. It doesn't mean we can't savor it. But when we're using food as something other than nourishment, and we're really kind of like stuffing ourselves and trying to fill a hole, that's a different story. Another client of mine was sharing how she had been, doing really, really well. We've been working together for a while, and all of a sudden something triggered her, and she went into kind of an overeating mode again. And what she did was she used our tools, and she identified that she was going to, you know who this is if you're watching, I don't want to say her name, she was going to see a bunch of people she hadn't seen in years. They all worked together many, many years ago. She was bummed out because she had lost a bunch of weight and gained it back, and she was really worried about that. Like, she felt bad about herself because she had lost weight and put it back on. No surprise there. That's what happens when we diet. So she didn't really know it consciously, but as she took time to really look at, gosh, I was doing really well. I didn't have any emotional eating episodes. I've been really using my tools and strategies. What happened? What triggered this episode? And so she really connected the dots back to, gosh, I'm really feeling self-conscious about the weight I gained back. And then she kind of talked herself through it and said, nobody gives a crap about what I weigh. People are there to see me. My weight is not my value. She had to really work through the process. And she reached out to me last night, told me she couldn't stop eating. And I said, stop right now. You can stop. You have the power. You have the choice. Most of the time, we feel like we're out of control and we think we don't have a choice, but we really do. We have a choice in the moment. You just might have to dig a little bit deeper. And so many people say, it's so hard, it's so hard, it's so difficult. It's not difficult, it's just different. It's not what you're used to. So when I work with my clients, we get in there, we really look at what the triggers are, what drives the behavior, how they can, in the moment, change that behavior and really heal that trigger so it doesn't keep happening over and over. Or so if it does happen, they're really tuned into it and they can move through it so much quicker. They don't turn to the emotional eating, or if they do, they stop immediately. So obsessive food thoughts come from diet mindset, right? Restriction, deprivation, just kind of like what I was talking about yesterday with self-sabotage. We set ourselves up at the beginning of the day, like, that's it, I'm gonna eat great all day. And then by whatever time in the afternoon, when our willpower starts to wane, when we start to lose that kind of commitment we had in the morning, we just let it all go. And then we just promise ourselves we'll start over the next day, or we feel like we keep failing, and why are we doing this, and I don't understand, and all of that. So you could stay in that cycle, or you could get support and start to really look at, what are my behaviors? What do I do with these triggers? How do I support myself? And that's hard to do on your own, especially when you're in your own way, when you don't know what your blind spots are, when you don't know what your blocks are, you just know you're blocked. And that's what having a coach is so important for. And that's why when I started working with my coach, and I worked with her over 2 years, Those are the things that we focused on. Really changing my mindset, looking at my triggers, the places I sabotage myself, how I could build consistency. All of these things I'm talking about this week are all the things that I worked on with my coach and ultimately helped me heal. So like I said in my other 2 days of videos, I'm going to be sharing about my Empowered Eaters Club, so you can take what I'm talking about in these videos much deeper so that you can finally heal your relationship with food and experience the freedom you've been desiring and drop that freaking extra weight that you've been carrying. Now, I'm not going to say that's going to happen fast, because if we're on a diet, yes, it will happen fast, but we won't keep it off. It happens over a longer period of time, which is how it happened for me. That's how I lost 30 pounds and I've now kept it off for over 10 years. Because I did that work, I really dove in and I worked on changing my mindset, changing my behaviors, changing my relationship with food. So I'm gonna be telling you how you can take all of that deeper in my Empowered Eaters Club. I only have 4 spots available. I'm gonna be opening that up on Monday. So I'll tell you more about that in the final videos tomorrow and Sunday. And if you're interested, I'll tell you how you can get more information. Obsessive food thoughts, right? Dieting mindset, that's where they come from. All right, you guys, I'll be back tomorrow and we'll be talking about how to navigate parties, weddings, holidays, all of that. We have the holidays coming up. People are already starting to freak out, and I want you to know that you can get through the holidays feeling empowered and enjoying the foods you love and not worrying about that standard traditional 10 pounds that most people gain over the holidays. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day. I'll be back tomorrow, probably around 2 o'clock-ish Pacific time, 5 o'clock Eastern. I'll try to post in the morning what time I'm going live, but I'll be all dressed up and ready to go to a wedding. All right, I'll see you then. Bye.